Hey there, Sarah the Surrogate here, and as of yesterday morning, I am no longer pregnant, meaning I had the baby. So I was 39 weeks in a few days and went into spontaneous labor at 5 in the evening, and then gave birth early yesterday morning. So I was in labor for, let's see, 9 hours. 9 hours. So delivered the baby almost. It was like 2:47 a.m. So um, a good amount of time, but not terribly long. It could have been worse. Contractions started pretty hard and pretty regular, pretty quickly. Didn't have I didn't have long till I got into a good contraction pattern. So it should have been very clear to me that I was in labor, but I was in like huge denial that I was. I waited till my husband got home. I told the parents via text, like, oh, hey, by the way, having contractions, but I'll let you know if anything happens, because, you can have contractions that start and then stop, but these were pretty intense and pretty early on. And I hadn't been having really any consistent contractions up until this point, right? So, but nonetheless, I was in like denial or just, convinced that this was going to be like a long process. So I didn't really want to go in right away. But my husband got home from work. I had let him know, like, hey, you don't stay late at work today. Come home on time. My kids were already at his parents' house, thankfully, so I was by myself, which is probably why I was partly able to go into labor, right? I'm convinced that was part of what took me so long, is because I always had my kids and I always had them to worry about. And it's like, well, how can I relax and release and focus on myself and laboring if I have my kids to worry about? This is my theory, at least. But anyway, so he got home and then I told him to go ahead and get, into his clothes and whatnot. And then he eventually had him around 7 something. I don't know the actual timeline of everything quite yet. My doula has some of that. He called the midwife, and she kind of just listened on the phone and was like, well, it's your third baby, and it sounds like things are going good, so why don't you come on down in case things pick up. And, one could argue, we got there around 8:20, and she was like, well, let's go ahead and get you in a room. After they monitored me for a minute, so we got in a room. Mind you, there's only 3 at the birth center, so it's not like there are a lot of rooms, but got in the room and then kind of quickly got in the shower because it felt good to be under the warm water. And I don't know, it's a lot of a blur after that. Labor is intense, y'all. It's like no joke. It was I did okay up until about, I think, midnight, and then we did a check, and I was like only 4.5 centimeters fully effaced, which, I don't know how much you know about, having a baby, but, contractions are doing a couple of things. They're thinning your cervix to super paper thin, they're opening your cervix, and then they're pushing the baby down, right? So baby was well engaged into my pelvis. So the contractions had moved baby down. So I was feeling lots of pressure. And then it had fully thinned, as thin as it needed to get. But I was only opened 4.5 centimeters. And, in theory, you need to be like 10 to push a baby out. At least a fully developed baby. A full-term baby, I should say. So at that point, I was like feeling super like defeated, and my water had not broken yet, so we opted to break my water, and then contractions got super intense after that, even more intense. It was a good decision, but it was a terrible decision because, dear gosh, did that hurt. Holy moly. And so then I labored in the shower again again, it feels like forever. And I broke down, y'all. It was so bad. I felt stuck, and I felt panic and just sheer fear, and I could feel myself like just resisting the process. We talk as doulas a lot about like surrendering, and I could not surrender to the pain. It was too awful. And I know if I had been in a hospital, I would have been like, all right, let's get that epidural, right? Like, let's do this. I can't do this anymore. This is terrible. It's just like so intense. And it's, I try to tell people, it's this fight or flight response. And I was like trying to get away from it. I wanted to get away from it. I remember, telling my husband, like, I just want to be at home in bed with you and our kids and our dogs and our cat. I just want to be at home. I wanted to feel safe and secure and not be in pain anymore. So that was like around, it was sometime around, I think the 1 or 2 o'clock hour. I don't even know. And then at some point, we talked about me getting a shot for pain, but the midwife was like, listen, I have to check you before I can do that. And so she checked me again. And I don't know what time that was, but I was 7 centimeters. So, had made progress. So it wasn't like the pain was not doing anything. It wasn't like the contractions were just useless pain. Clearly I had been making progress. And then after that, I kind of stood and paced around the room a little bit. And then it was just like, oh no, like I just was pushing this baby out. Which this part was very different for me. Not only was I unmedicated completely, like I never got the shot of pain medicine. They kind of held off on that a little long, I think, to try to like see what would happen. But like as soon as I was standing and moving around, I probably just went from 7 to 10 in a heartbeat, and then it was like, okay, I gotta get this baby out. And with my previous births, I had epidurals, and so like I felt the pressure to push, and I was a fast pusher with epidurals, but this was just a very different, But that was like, again, with an epidural, someone checked me and said, "Oh, okay, it's time to push. Let's start pushing." And I was of course laying on my back and kind of the standard, U.S. birth here, and it was just very different, like standing on the side of the bed. And then I eventually went into a squatting position, and the parents were waiting outside the door. My back was to the door, and I was like, I don't want them coming in and seeing me poop myself. So I was like, can we just wait until the baby's actually here and then they can come in? And that's what we did. So I squatted, and I think I pushed her out in like 7 minutes. It was not a long time. It didn't feel like a long time to me either. So the dads, walked in as soon as she was out, and she is doing okay, and I'm doing okay. And yeah, I did bleed a lot. I hemorrhaged, so I lost a lot of blood, and they almost sent me to the hospital after that, but I, of course, was like, I don't want to go to the hospital. So how about you do what you can, and then we'll just see. So they did give me a lot of, they gave me a couple shots of Pitocin and some oral medication called Cytotec to try to get the bleeding under control. And then they still had to give me an IV and give me some IV Pitocin and then some IV fluids, just because I had a lot of bleeding, and my vital signs were kind of borderline. I was like tachycardia. Anyways, again, I had some blood loss, so I needed some fluids and stuff to pump that all back up. But they eventually let me go home from the birth center. I didn't have to transfer to the hospital, and yeah, so I'm day 1 postpartum and resting. I've been trying to sleep and pumping in between the sleeping, and yeah, so I'm not making any milk yet, but I didn't with my others either, so I'm not really anticipating doing that for like another day or two. I make drops of colostrum, not even like capable of getting it into anything, like nothing, and then suddenly my milk will come in, So I'm hoping that the blood loss doesn't affect that, because it could. But we'll see. I'll keep y'all posted. So I'm going to post this eventually when the parents go public with the baby's birth. So they haven't done that yet. So I'm recording it. I'm recording now, day 1 post-op, but by the time I post it, it might actually be a couple of days. I'll let y'all know. But And then I'll keep you posted on my pumping and all that fun stuff and how I'm recovering. I'm just really tired and really sore, as one can imagine. But yeah, there you go. Alrighty. I'll talk to you later. Bye.